Hi, everybody. Welcome to the next episode of Catching Up. I'm John Benninger, and today my guest is Brandon Hernandez, co-founder of Whole Brain Consulting, a food industry consultancy that specializes in operations management, food safety, quality and compliance, and supply chain services. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yep, it's great to have you here. I'm really looking forward to getting some of your perspective on what's going out there in the market and how companies are responding and how they should be responding. But before that, I always just like to say, how are you? How are all of your colleagues there at Whole Brain Consulting?
So we're doing well. I think we're exceptionally grateful for where we happen to be. I think nobody saw this coming, or to the extent that we thought it was going to be. And so truly just appreciative of the ability to continue to provide support to the various members of the food industry that we work with. And certainly looking forward to the day that we can have these conversations in person. But as for right now, this is the safer bet. And so we've made our pivot to be able to support, hopefully, it becomes a template for the future, like a lot of people are doing, that this is the way that not only makes my life easier, but makes it safer. And, we hope to continue that trend. But, for us, it's been a good transition for us. We're incredibly lucky in that we were remote service to begin with anyways. And this just kind of lent itself to that. But I am happy. We'll be happy when we're back to business as usual. I think the one part that me personally, I didn't anticipate was how much I missed just the trade show circuit. Like everybody goes, oh, I got to go to this trade show. I got to go to that one. And I think at this point, it's like, man, I really did like seeing everybody face to face, shaking their hand, giving them a hug, whatever the case may be. So I think that that personal relationship is helped, obviously, by video platforms, but certainly when we can all get back to some normalcy, that'll be great too.
Yeah, I can't wait. Well, obviously, we're in the trade show business. It's part of our business, and just in addition to the content, so we can't wait either. But I hear that from a lot of people on the B2B side, but also just on the human side, the social side. I mean, my wife and I were talking. We just can't wait to go out to a dinner and or hang with some friends and go out and do kind of anything at this point. It would be great.
Right. Anything that gets me out of the four walls of my house, that's what I'm shooting for.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I think we're all looking forward to that. But we're going to get there too. That's the other thing is I'm an optimist. I think this is the time when we need that optimism, not wishful thinking. Not we still need to be smart and take all the steps. But you have to believe that we're going to get through this the best that we can and come out the other side. And I'm looking at it, seeing incredible innovation that's been forced by this unfortunate circumstance. But I'm seeing companies come up with just incredible ideas to maintain their businesses and all of that. I'm sure you probably are as well. I'd love to hear a little bit about what you're seeing out there in the marketplace. What companies that you work with are doing or maybe what they should be doing in times like this to try and keep moving ahead,
Well, I think the biggest thing that we saw right out of the gate was that a good friend of mine that helps run Perfect Snacks, he and I were talking about it, and he's like, this was the opportunity to dust off the business continuity plan, the opportunity for a brand to really look at what does our recall plan look like, not because the FDA and the CDC came out and said, look, this is a communicable disease like anything else, even the USDA. Yeah. You need to treat it like that. Don't run around with your hair on fire, because the interventions that you have will work, whether it's kill steps or HPP or whatever. Yeah. Those are going to still be they're still going to be useful in this situation. So it's nothing that you need to do different. I think from our perspective, it was never I think the biggest thing we see is that it was never a supply issue. It's always been a demand one. And so we're talking with brands, obviously, all the time. We're working with our private equity partners that we do due diligence for, whatever. And what we're seeing is that everybody's like, I just don't know what to do with the demand numbers. When you go from a 6 to 10% base online business to 60 overnight,
Yeah,
that's a hell of a pivot to have to make, especially when your brick and mortar falls apart, and that's where all your data was really driven from.
certainly.
And so, SKU rationalization, things that, maybe pushing some R&D, some things that you may have in the pipeline or things that we're seeing. But from a supply chain standpoint, we were always saying, it's once you get the demand figured out, the supply chain is there.
Yeah.
The ability to produce products is still there. The ability to, is it leading to longer lead times? Is it leading to certain aspects that maybe you weren't accustomed to? Of course, everybody has to allocate time and effort and energy to, but this is where, again, like in our co-man sourcing business, when we talk to people on the co-man sourcing side, the first thing we always tell everybody, it's my job to find you the right co-packer, not any co-packer. There are other people in the industry that will produce a list, or will, for $500, I give you a list, or whatever the case, whatever the monetary is to it. Yeah. The thing of it is that when we look at it, it's like, look, could I give you my beverage list? Sure. But if I put you in a facility that runs truckloads at a time and you need a pallet, I did you no favors.
Yeah.
And so realistically, this is just the opportunity to take a deep breath, to look at your supply chain. If I have unique ingredients, what can I do to procure a secondary supplier?
Yeah.
And what do I do? I hope people are taking the long view, and what we're trying to impart to people is take the long view, that this isn't the first pandemic. It won't be the last. Hopefully it's the last one in our lifetimes. But realistically, there's going to be major breakouts of diseases. The more populous we get, the more we're on top of each other. It's going to happen. Again, pointing back to what does your business continuity plan say? And what I always tell everybody, even the branded side, develop these things when you're not in a panic. Yeah. Because it's meant to be the blueprint for how you're going to conduct business in that time of crisis. You don't want to be developing it at the same time you're going through it.
Absolutely.
And so that's what we're trying to get through to people, is that it's not, once the demand numbers start to level out, you'll have a better sense of what's going to happen. And we're also telling people, it's like, look, the SPINS, IRI, Nielsen, those are all great data points to have, but realistically, the way the world is right now, pay attention to what Amazon's doing, pay attention to what Walmart's doing, what Kroger's doing. Why? Because they have consumer demand the second that it shifts, because they have point of sale access. Yes. The second that consumer behavior shifts, they're going to shift with it. And so you keep an eye on all that data, the SPINS, the IRI, because it's valuable data.
Yeah.
But also keep an eye on, it seems very elementary, but keep an eye on the weekly ads. What are the weekly ads in those places doing?
Yeah.
It's just it's a 4 or 5 days lag, and you can start to kind of see what the trends are looking like and try and start to tease some data away from it. Yeah, I think it's worthwhile.
It's that ground knowledge. It's real time. It's happening. And there's so much disruption right now that on one hand, it can be a little overwhelming, but we just need to pay attention. Like you say, keep an eye out. Things change pretty quickly now. There can be, and geographically, what is happening right now in one state or region might be different than what's happening in another state or region, especially in times like this when there's so much variation.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So as you work with your regular clients that you've been working with for months or years or what have you, have you seen a change in the type of stuff that they're, needing help with from you? Where you said the business continuity plan, hopefully you already had a really good one in place. If not, that's kind of where you need to start. But what else are you seeing just in your interactions with clients?
I think the biggest things that we're seeing right now, one, again, is the lack of a secondary supply, the lack of understanding sort of what their landscape may or may not need to be. Yeah. I would say the second one is, if they're self-manufacturing, it is how do we beef up whatever food safety we already have in place? And that's something where we're, the first week that this happened, I mean, we had a large bakery out of Canada with 8 manufacturing sites reach out. And it was like, well, what would you do above and beyond? We don't want to just make sure that manufacturing is safe. What do we do to keep our office employees safe? What do we do to keep, they were social distancing and all that weeks and weeks and weeks before the USDA or the CDC said to, because we recognized and they recognized this is something that needs to happen. So a lot of people pivoting to put money into physical barriers or whatever the case may be, extra hand washing stations, foot baths. One of the first things I told people is like, even you wouldn't believe a can of Lysol at the office door, people spraying their shoes before they go walking through the office. It's not something you normally think about, but if you're looking for, next level sort of ideas around, is it a requirement in a food safety audit? Absolutely not. If you're looking to protect your employment base, though, shoes are obviously a vector for those kind of things. So spray your shoes. That seems simple, but it's not something that everybody always does. So from that perspective, and then I think realistically, it has manufactured for people it has magnified potentially a manufacturing issue that you may or you did or you may not have known was that bad. Again, that goes to the right sizing a manufacturer as opposed to just any manufacturer. And I think that's brought a lot of that to the surface for some of our clients that they had these manufacturers already. They didn't want moved. They just wanted help with their supply chain. Okay, we'll step in and help you. I'm not here to force you to do anything. If you're happy there and you have a good relationship, stay there. No reason for me to remake that wheel for you. But what we have seen and what's exacerbating some of the smaller to mid-sized brand is that I was in the Cadillac of gluten-free bread manufacturing, right? I'm just pulling something out, but I was in a great place that was super clean, did everything I needed to. Was I a smaller client? Yes, but this has brought to light that even your manufacturing resource may have to go to line allocation, and that's where the smaller businesses get bit, because when I can produce 5 days straight of company A because they take 5 days straight of manufacturing and you only take 5 hours, that's starting to exacerbate that a little bit with what we're seeing. Or it's just magnified it to the point that people realize, oh no, I really was in a place that maybe I should or shouldn't have been. And so we're doing a lot of discussions around that because realistically, are manufacturers still picking up the telephone? Absolutely. But the time horizon from the point they first pick up the phone to actually being able to produce with them has grown a lot. You've gone from 6 weeks and you're producing your first line trial, potentially 3 months. That, I can't make that pivot now fast enough. And so it's kind of highlighted those things for people. The hope is that they're starting to, it'll be an inflection point for them to be able to kind of push themselves forward. It's just something to tease through and have to work through right now.
All right, put you on mute there for just a second because I had, here we are. I'm in my kitchen /office /studio, and so somebody rang the doorbell and the chihuahuas went crazy. But you might have heard just a little bit of that before I was able to get to that mute button there.
That's all right. I'm waiting for a 3-year-old to come screaming through here any minute.
That's one of the things that this whole crazy thing we're going through together collectively. We're all getting to see each other like in a kind of a more personal way in some cases. Certainly trade shows are great, and I can't wait to get back and shake a hand and give a hug and all that too. But I've gotten to know so many of our partners and our clients and our colleagues, kids and dogs, and it's a little bit of comfort as we all go through this together, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. You get to see all the, I think it's more being able to sit somewhere and go, okay, good. It's not just me.
Totally.
Right. Oh, thank God. I'm not the only one that, a 3-year-old comes screaming through or the dog barks at the doorbell. Like, right. Good. Not the only one trying to figure that out. It makes you feel better that it's not only is it a common issue, but it's also a common we're all the same
Yep.
at one level or another. We're all eventually the same.
You bet. So, that's, again, it gives me that faith and that optimism that we're all going to get through this together and I think we're going to come out of it really strong. I think that companies and organizations and communities and individuals, as we get through this, like every other major crisis that we survive, it makes us stronger on the other end and drives a lot of innovation and a lot of, as crazy as it sounds, some good things will come out of this, I think. That human connection and,
Well, absolutely. I think one of the first things I said to probably the second or third one of these that we did, I said, look, the pandemic of, the Spanish flu pandemic of 1818 or 1918 and 19 didn't keep us from having the roaring 20s. Was life a little different? Yeah, it was, but it didn't keep us from pushing forward together. And not that any of this was ever going to really stop us from pushing forward together. Just, again, that's don't describe me how dark the damn tunnel is. Tell me what the light at the end of it looks like. That's sort of what the play is, or the conversation that I think needs to happen more, is that manufacturing is not going away. I'm still of the mind that the food industry goes down at the same time or right after healthcare. People have to eat. They absolutely have to eat. That's why you see government stepping in, why you see them, you have to do this, you have to do that. Whether you agree with the order or not, the point is that they are going to let this part of the world, this part of the business sector collapse very last, which means that those of us that are in it need to keep pushing to make it as safe as possible and to keep people as in stock as possible. And those are the ways that we continue to push forward. And that's ultimately how we're going to get through it together, right? Like, we're all going to get through it together. It just right now you're just trying to judge the distance of the light at the end of the tunnel. How far or close am I to it? It's still there. And I'm very optimistic, as you are. I'm sure that, is it going to be different coming out of it? Sure. But I think it's good. We do what we always do as human beings. We take the best parts away from it. And that's what you're going to do. The video conferences, the ability to interact face to face without actually having to be with that person. I don't think those are all terrible things. I think those are things that we'll take away and, keeps travel to the essential bucket, right? Yeah. That's what it'll eventually move it to.
Yeah, and we have an incredible ability to adapt. That's something that, like I say, whether you think back on the housing and the banking crisis in 08 and or the horrific 9/11 stuff. I mean, any crisis, large or small, that we encounter, we adapt and we figure out, okay, what do I need to do now? How do I need to be flexible? And that's what's going to happen here as well. We all wish it would happen sooner rather than later, but some of that we can't entirely control, and that's okay too. Being comfortable being uncomfortable is kind of an important part of it as well. That's what we're finding with a lot of our folks. We've got, just like you, I have colleagues who have young kids. My kids aren't young. I'm an empty nester, but you're trying to be a teacher, a homeschooler, a parent, an employee, and all at the same time. It's incredible the effort that I'm seeing from people to make all that happen and somehow keep it all held together. So that gives me great faith there. What about consumer trends? That's something that I'm fascinated to see what happens. Like you said, keep an eye on Amazon and Walmart and these different data points and all that. What's your take on that as we start to move through this and get to the other side a little bit? Are there some changes that you think are going to stick? I mean, more people are cooking food at home now. More people are probably learning how to cook things or eat things that weren't part of their everyday routine prior to this. And there's probably 100 other things going on that are going to maybe change behavior as well. Wondering what your and your firm's take is on that.
So I think from my perspective, our perspective is that you saw an immediate change in consumer demand or behavior the second that stay-at-home orders went out.
Yeah.
I think now what you're going to see is as they start to lift, it'll be tied. People will go out to their level of comfort, right? Like if if I continue to see numbers rise, even in my given region or whatever, I may opt to stay home. You know, one of the things that we were on the call with Excel Foods, I think it was last week, and they brought up the fact that, you know, this is the first time that people are sitting at home, not only working, but they're making lunch for themselves. And so they're seeing a shift in behavior of, holy crap, look how much trash I'm generating. Look how much, like there's a certain, so there's a certain perspective of that. They haven't had to look at it. It's not, when I eat as an individual out in the world during my workday, it's kind of nebulous. I have, you know, 3 pieces of trash and I throw it away. I do it for an entire family of 4 or 5. All of a sudden, my trash fills up that much faster. So you have some people that are really starting to take a look at continuing to push for sustainability, to continue to push for, but you know, the meal at home. You know, people are diving into their cookbooks and all that, and realistically, that I think is going to be tied more towards, when is it going to be okay for me to go to a restaurant again, right? Whether it's recognized or not, even with like the specialty foods areas, you know, the high end granolas, the high end yogurts, all that stuff, you know, that's a status symbol thing for some people, and so, you know, I can't be in my Instagram showing you how I'm working out today or where I'm at in the park, or, you know, so I think some of it'll be sort of a threefold. What are the states and the federal government doing to hold? Are they still holding people home? Does summer really bring the relief that we all hope it does from a numbers standpoint? And then what are the restaurants going to do? If I have to continue to cook for myself, well then demand shift is going to maintain the way that it is, and you know, everybody will adjust. What we told everybody to guard against the first 2 weeks that this was really happening, and the stay-at-home orders and all that from the branded side, is do not react to the demand numbers you're seeing now. Whatever your historicals were for 90 days, whatever your year-over-year reviews were, maintain those numbers, because do not base everything you do in the next 90 days on the next 30, because it's going to be askew. It's going to be, this is when we were talking, everybody, I remember the first 3 phone calls that I had, you know, about toilet paper. Right. We're going to have piles and piles of toilet paper in the and it's like, not if you have a good supply chain person. A good supply chain person knows this is a blip, knows how to adjust for it and to bring themselves back. So don't set your life based on this number. Let's look and see what it evens out to, and then we can move forward with your sort of plans and everything. But if you take every dollar you have and put it into inventory based on this one demand number, you're going to create more headaches for yourself than you ever would have if you just stayed the course and kind of waited it out to see what happened.
Yeah, I agree. It will flatten. It will return to some normal. That was a spike, and hopefully companies didn't do that. Hopefully companies didn't do that panic buying like we saw with toilet paper and whatever else is next. You know, like you say, now with the meat issues that are in the media and all that, and some of these issues with some of these plants, I guarantee you there's people out there buying way more meat than they really need to have on hand right now, you know.
Well, one thing, especially if it's, I mean, animal protein continues to get a bad rap, and the move to plant-based and all that. But the fact of the matter is, I mean, you know, the 3 or 4 largest animal protein producers were allowed to aggregate their assets into basically a dozen manufacturing sites. Mm-hmm. This is what happens when you have a concentration of business like that. Yeah. However, there are over 800 registered processing sites across the U.S. So if you go to your store, like I'll take just for instance, I'm in Colorado. I'm in northern Colorado. And if I go to the Kroger or the Safeway and the shelf is empty, I know that there are 3 processors within a stone's throw of my house that I can just drive there and buy it from there. And I don't have to buy a half an animal or anything like that. I just buy what I need. Yep. And so I think the ability to kind of look at where you're at in the region, and if that's something that you really, really want, there's a way to keep that food on your plate and not have it be what everybody else is having to go through. You just, you know, you're gonna have to change your buying behavior. Yeah. But ultimately that stuff will be there if you need it.
We can't panic. That's when bad decisions get made, and whether it's in the personal life and how we're running our households and our families and our communities, or whether it's in our businesses, not many good decisions come out of panic. So got to keep calm. Hence the coffee cup I have. Keep calm and carry on. If we keep doing that, I think we're going to be fine. So
right.
I always like to wrap up with a couple of things. First off, what in this trying time, it is a trying time, but what keeps you positive? What keeps you hopeful and focused, as you say, not on how dark the tunnel is, but on the future? What brings that for you?
I think for me and everything that we see, I've always subscribed, and I tell all of our employees or whomever, find a small win in a day. Whether it's and make it something simple, like I got to go outside with my kids today. You used to take it for granted.
Yeah.
Oh, I can go outside whenever I want, and I can spend time with my kids, in between trade shows or whatever the case may be. And I think this is kind of pushed to the front that, no, I accomplished these things today, and I think too many people say this is all I accomplished, instead of just taking I got this done today. Take credit for what happened today. And what I think for me, the continued resiliency I see in our business, not whole brain, I mean, as an industry, the continued resiliency I see, the continued, how can I put it? The rising tide lifts all boats, right? Like, I'm here with you. I'm grateful to be here with you to have this conversation, but these kind of conversations are kind of happening all over, and they just happened overnight. And I think it should give us, I always say the food industry is the biggest small industry in the world, right? Like, just everybody sort of knows everybody. And it's amazing how fast everybody that I spoke with within that first week was, how do I help? How do I make sure that this continues? How do we make sure that, whatever small brands are lost, let's keep it to the minimum. Even big brands, how do we help make sure that us as an industry kind of pull each other forward? I think that's probably what gave me the greatest optimism, was that no matter what's going on, no matter what's happening outside, that somehow we've all found a way to rally, whether it's 12 of us, 1,200, 12,000. We found a way to rally and to support each other. And my hope would be that we can all look at that and be more than grateful and appreciative of the industry that we're all blessed to work in, the people that we have the opportunity to know and to interact with. Hopefully we carry that forward and don't take the next handshake, don't take the next hug for granted, and that we were all here for each other when we needed each other the most. And I think that's what should give everybody optimism every damn day that they wake up. There's somebody somewhere having a webinar, having a teleconference, having whatever, that, you may only draw 5 minutes out of value in that hour, but that 5 minutes may mean the difference to whether your business survives or not. Yeah. And I think that's probably what's given me the most optimism, is the industry's ability to sort of come together in a hurry.
The industry absolutely does that, comes together in time. I've seen it over and over and over during my 25 years in the market, and it's a beautiful thing, and it is what's going to get us through. That's right up there on my list too. It gives me faith, especially having these conversations like this, and I've had about a dozen of them so far. And what I hear over and over, because I always ask that same or a similar question toward the end, and what I hear over and over is, in some form, what you just said: faith in people, faith in our industry. People are rising up to the challenge, and we're going to get through it. So, it's going to be okay. This is a tough one, but it's not impossible. And there's so much good work going on right now by so many smart, dedicated, compassionate people that, this is when the best of our industry shines, I think. Final question for you. What sport are you most looking forward to eventually being able to watch again? We were chatting, just for those in the audience, we had a little back and forth on this, so this isn't coming completely out of left field, but
I got to say, for me, it's anything competitive. I'll watch literal dodgeball at this point. I would say, for me, anybody that knows me even relatively well, it's always the football season.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I love hockey and basketball and all that, but realistically, I think for me, the first preseason football game or whatever, it'll be like the Super Bowl at my house.
Yeah.
But I think that's probably, I'm also a big Premier League soccer fan.
Mm-hmm.
If they want to get going too, hey, I'm all for watching that too. So again, I think that ties more to the us leading back to the normalcy, right? Like getting back to sort of a normal pattern of behavior. So at this point, I'll take anything.
Yeah, we were joking about the Ocho for those of you who have seen the movie Dodgeball and all that, but seriously, yeah, come up with some kind of a sport that I can watch, and I'll probably be watching it right now. So, but again, we'll get there. It'll happen, and if there's anything that we Informa can do for your organization or any of your clients, just let us know. We're known for the trade shows and the events, Natural Products Expo West and Vita Foods and SupplySide and all these food ingredient shows around the world that we operate. But we do a lot of other stuff too. We've got market data and resources. So for you or any of the brands out there, we're in that boat with you. And if there's anything we can do to support any of these companies, large or small, consider us partners in that.
Absolutely, 100%, and that goes the same for us. We're always grateful for our existing and ongoing relationship with you all at Informa, and we don't ever take any of that for granted. We're very appreciative for everything that you all do for the industry, with the industry, and so we know you guys are a great trusted resource, and we're always happy to partner with you guys in any way, shape, or form. And anything that we can do, obviously, to help support, there's never too big an ask. So please don't be afraid to do so.
I appreciate that. So yeah, everybody check it out. If you don't know Whole Brain Consulting, just Google them. They'll pop right up. Great organization. And if you're one of these businesses that is struggling with some of this right now, there's probably some help out there for you. So Brandon, appreciate you joining us and taking some time today. I know it's a really busy time for everyone. And maybe we can catch up again a little bit further out when we get some more clarity about, what the horizon looks like here. But really appreciate you sharing your perspectives with all of us today.
Thank you so much for having me, and I look forward to the next one.
All right.